In a tale of power and passion lies Queen Mary I of England, a monarch of many firsts. She wasn't just the first queen to rule England in her own right, but also a figure of intense controversy and conviction. Her reign opened the door for female sovereignty in a male-dominated world. But why does her legacy evoke such polarizing emotions? Mary Tudor, infamously dubbed Bloody Mary, was born into a world of royal privilege and political turbulence on February 18, 1516, at the Palace of Placentia. She was the only child of King Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, to survive infancy. From the outset, Mary's life was a tapestry of scholarly pursuits and dynastic machinations. The education she received was befitting a princess of the realm, with a curriculum designed to mold her into a learned and capable ruler. Under the tutelage of her mother and a series of esteemed governesses and tutors, she mastered multiple languages, including Latin, French, and Spanish. Mary was equally well-versed in theology, philosophy, and history, displaying a particular aptitude for music. Her intellectual prowess was evident early on, and she was recognized as a precocious child who could engage with scholars on complex theological debates. The political landscape of her childhood was dominated by her father's quest for a male heir, which led to her betrothal to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, when she was just 6 years old. This alliance was a strategic move by Henry VIII to strengthen ties with one of Europe's most powerful rulers. However, the betrothal was dissolved when Mary was 9, a decision driven by shifting political alliances and Charles's own dynastic considerations. The annulment of her parents' marriage was a seismic event that would alter the course of her life. Henry's determination to divorce Catherine of Aragon and marry Anne Boleyn set in motion the English Reformation and the establishment of the Church of England. The annulment not only declared Mary illegitimate, but also demoted her from her position as a princess. She was separated from her mother and later forced to serve in her half-sister Elizabeth's household, a humbling experience for the once royal heiress. Despite these tribulations, Mary remained steadfast in her Catholic faith, a conviction that would define her reign as queen. The question of why she clung so tenaciously to her beliefs, even as her father spearheaded the Protestant Reformation, can be understood in light of her mother's influence and the religious fervor of the time. How she navigated the treacherous waters of her father's court, maintaining her dignity and sense of self, speaks to her resilience and political acumen. Mary's early experiences as a princess were marked by the interplay of her rigorous education and the volatile political shifts of her father's reign, who died on January 28, 1547, at the age of 55. His death was attributed to a combination of factors, including severe obesity, an open, ulcerated leg, and complications from a jousting accident that had occurred years prior. He was succeeded by Edward VI, his only legitimate son by his third wife, Jane Seymour. Edward ascended to the throne at the tender age of 9. His reign, though short, was significant for the establishment of Protestantism in England. However, as his health declined, the question of succession became a matter of urgent concern. Edward, a devout Protestant, was determined to prevent the throne from passing to his half-sister Mary, a staunch Catholic. In his final days, he and his council drafted a device for the succession, which sought to exclude both Mary and their other half-sister, Elizabeth, from the line of succession, despite their legitimate claims. Instead, the device named Lady Jane Grey, Edward's Protestant cousin, as his successor. Upon his death on July 6, 1553, aged 15, Lady Jane Grey was proclaimed queen. However, Her reign lasted a mere 9 days. Mary, demonstrating remarkable political acumen, had already set her own succession strategy in motion. She gathered support by issuing proclamations and assembling a military force on her estates in Norfolk. The Privy Council, initially supporting Lady Jane, quickly reversed its decision in the face of Mary's overwhelming popular support and the rallying of forces loyal to her cause. Mary's ascension to the throne was a dramatic reversal of fortunes. Once declared illegitimate and sidelined by her father's marital and religious upheavals, she now emerged as the rightful heir. Her proclamation as queen not only marked a significant shift in religious politics, but also heralded the arrival of England's first queen regnant. Mary's path to the throne was a testament to her resilience and strategic prowess, navigating through the treacherous waters of Tudor succession to ultimately wear the crown. Her reign, though marred by religious persecution, was a pivotal moment in the history of the English monarchy, setting the stage for the future rule of her half-sister, Elizabeth I. Her story, from princess to queen, is a narrative of endurance, conviction, and the relentless pursuit of power in a world dominated by men and their machinations. Mary I of England's reign was characterized by her fervent efforts to restore Roman Catholicism and reverse the Protestant reforms instituted by her father, Henry VIII, and her brother, Edward VI. Her religious policies were driven by a deep personal conviction and a desire to return England to the Catholic faith. As she ascended to the throne, Mary moved swiftly to reinstate her parents' marriage, thereby legitimizing her claim to the throne. She then turned her attention to religious matters, revoking the Protestant legislation passed during her brother's reign. This included the repeal of the Act of Supremacy, which had declared the monarch the head of the Church of England, and the restoration of papal authority. Mary's religious reforms were comprehensive and systematic. She replaced Protestant clergy with Catholic ones and reinstated the heresy laws, which led to the persecution and execution of prominent Protestant figures, including Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury. The Marian persecutions, as they came to be known, saw nearly 300 Protestants burned at the stake for heresy. These persecutions earned Mary the posthumous nickname Bloody Mary, a reflection of the brutality of her attempts to enforce religious conformity. The Parliament of 1553 played a crucial role in Mary's religious overhaul, repealing most of Edward's Protestant legislation, including the 2 prayer books, Acts of Uniformity, the Marriage of the Clergy, and the 42 Articles. The Act of Supremacy was annulled, and in November 1554, Cardinal Pole, as the Pope's legate, granted absolution to the realm, officially restoring England to papal obedience. Despite her efforts, Mary faced significant opposition and challenges. The nobility, many of whom had grown wealthy from the dissolution of monasteries and the acquisition of church lands during the Reformation, were reluctant to see these reversed. Moreover, Protestantism had taken root among segments of the population, making it difficult for her to fully re-establish Catholicism. Her attempt to restore the monasteries and other religious institutions met with limited success, as the government conceded that lands distributed during the Reformation would remain with their new owners. Nevertheless, seminaries were established to train Catholic priests, and there was an effort to replace Protestant books with Catholic ones. Mary's religious policies were a temporary divergence in England's religious trajectory, as her reign lasted only 5 years and she left no heir to continue her Catholic legacy. Her successor, Elizabeth I, would once again shift the religious landscape of England towards Protestantism. Mary's efforts to restore Catholicism were a defining feature of her reign, leaving a legacy that has been both revered and reviled in English history. The marriage of Mary I of England to Philip II of Spain was a union that sparked attention across Europe, carrying with it a multitude of political implications and influencing the balance of power at the time. On July 25, 1554, Mary, the first Queen Regnant of England, weighed Philip at Winchester Cathedral in a ceremony that was as much about politics as it was about matrimony. The match was suggested by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, Philip's father, who envisioned it as a means to extend his influence and consolidate Catholic power in Europe. For Mary, the marriage was an opportunity to affirm her legitimacy and strengthen her position as queen, while also furthering her goal of restoring Catholicism to England. In England, the marriage was met with suspicion and resistance. Mary's subjects feared the influence of Spain and the potential for England to become a mere satellite of the Habsburg Empire. The xenophobic sentiments were palpable, and there was concern that Philip would overshadow Mary's rule and compromise England's independence. This fear was not unfounded, as Philip was a powerful figure in his own right, later becoming King of Spain and its vast empire. To allay these fears, a marriage contract was drawn up, stipulating that Philip would be titled King of England, but would not hold the same powers as Mary. He was not to be crowned, and no English land or title would be his if Mary died without an heir. England would not be obliged to provide military support to Philip's father. Despite these precautions, the marriage did have significant political implications. It aligned England with the Habsburgs against France, reshaping diplomatic relations and military alliances. The union also had a profound impact on domestic politics, as it intensified the religious divide within England. Mary's Catholic policies, supported by Philip, led to the persecution of Protestants and further entrenched the religious conflict that would continue long after her death. On the European stage, the marriage strengthened the Catholic bloc as England joined the Habsburg-dominated Holy Roman Empire and Spain in their struggle against Protestantism and their rivalry with France. The marriage was a strategic move in the complex game of European politics, where dynastic alliances often dictated the ebb and flow of power. This marriage, however, was not to last. Mary's death in 1558 left Philip a widower, and the throne passed to her Protestant half-sister, Elizabeth I. Political landscape shifted once again, and England's brief Catholic revival came to an end. Their marriage remains a significant historical event, emblematic of the intricate interplay between personal unions and the broader political and religious currents of the time. Queen Mary is believed to have succumbed to ovarian cancer at the age of 42, and the ascension of Elizabeth I, her half-sister, would steer the country back to Protestantism. The transition of power to Queen Elizabeth was relatively smooth, despite the religious and political tensions of the time. Mary had recognized Elizabeth as her heir in the final weeks of her life, adhering to the Act of Succession of 1544. Elizabeth's succession was a significant moment in English history, as it not only represented a shift in religious policy, but also the rise of a monarch who would come to be known as one of England's greatest rulers. Historians have long debated Mary's legacy, with views ranging from harsh criticism to more sympathetic reassessments. Initially, her reign was overshadowed by the label Bloody Mary, a moniker derived from the Marian persecutions, where hundreds of Protestants were executed under her orders. This aspect of her rule has dominated popular perceptions, painting her as a tyrannical figure in the annals of history. Over time, interpretations of Mary's reign have evolved. The 19th century saw a more nuanced view, with some historians recognizing the challenges she faced as a female ruler in a male-dominated society. They acknowledged her political achievements, such as her successful coup against Lady Jane Grey, which many consider the only successful revolt against government in 16th century England. In the 20th and 21st centuries, historians have continued to reassess her legacy. Some have argued that her actions, while harsh, were not exceptional for the period, and that her father, Henry VIII, executed far more people during his reign. Others have emphasized the personal tragedies she endured, including her loveless marriage and the absence of an heir, which contributed to her portrayal as a tragic figure. Contemporary scholarship often seeks to understand Mary within the broader context of Tudor England and the European Reformation. Historians like Eamon Duffy have suggested that Mary's restoration of Catholicism was welcomed by many, and that her reputation as an unpopular queen was constructed by Protestants after her death. This re-evaluation has led to a more balanced view, recognizing her as a trailblazer, the first queen to rule England in her own right, and a ruler who navigated complex political and religious landscapes with determination and resilience. Mary's life and reign continue to be subjects of historical debate and interpretation. As new evidence comes to light and perspectives shift, her story remains a compelling reflection of the turbulent times in which she lived and the enduring complexities of her character and decisions.